Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy. Happy anniversary. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder, and we've reached 100 episodes of Podcast Envy. I thought it might never happen. I guess that really has nothing to do with anniversaries at all, but it feels like a milestone for us to celebrate, so here we are. By the way, if you are coming up on a significant podcasting milestone of your own and wondering how you can celebrate, check out episode 55 of Podcast Envy for some really creative ideas and thoughts around acknowledging milestones. The title of the episode is called, well, Celebrating Podcast Milestones. Linked for you, of course, in the show notes for this episode. You know, looking back over 100 episodes of Podcast Envy, I can't help but think about the olden days of the Creative Imposter Studios. When I launched Podcast Envy back in 2018, I only had a couple of podcast editing clients. I'd helped a few people launch shows. I may still have been working a couple of odd part-time jobs. And the team was me, our technical director, who didn't even really have a title yet, Edwin Ruiz, and maybe my former associate editor, Maddie, was interning at that time. I can't quite remember. Suffice to say, there is no way I could have known then that 5 years later, I'd be running a full-service podcasting agency and strategy consultancy, producing shows for more than 10 clients, teaching podcasting to more than 30 high school students 3 times per year, and managing a team of superstar contractors, that I would have traveled across the country to produce content, that I would be speaking on multiple stages. I mean, it's an entrepreneurial podcasting dream come true in many ways, which isn't to say that it hasn't been hard. And that there aren't days that I just want to hide under the covers and never open my laptop again. But all in all, I am so grateful to have what I have in this business and in this industry. And I am grateful to myself for taking the risks that I've taken and for staying on this entrepreneurial path even when it gets tough. And most importantly, grateful to everyone who is a part of this journey with me, especially my clients, coaches, and collaborators, my team, and you, my faithful listening audience. And in order to celebrate, what better way than to invite you over to my house? We're going behind the scenes at the Creative Imposter Studios and introducing you to the whole team who powers this podcasting machine. I have asked each of my team members to offer one tip for podcasters from their experience and point of view, and one bit of advice for someone who wants to get into doing the type of work that they are doing. Now, just to give you some context, I sprang this idea on everyone kinda last minute as we were getting together on Zoom, and some folks, especially the editors, were mad that I didn't give them enough warning to get their actual fancy audio setup out. But I figured since I've been practicing letting go of my inner perfectionist, and we were recording on Zoom after all anyway, I wasn't going to worry about pristine audio. We'll just call it sound texture. But before you meet with the Creative Imposter Studios team, I have 2 very exciting things I want to share with you. This is, of course, the Podcast Angels segment where I share with you products, services, or programs that I want you to have so you can sweeten your podcasting experience. Number 1, if you are a pod dreamer, someone who has yet to launch your own show, but you've been dreaming about it for quite some time, or maybe you've started to create it, but you haven't quite gotten it out into the world yet, we have a brand new program that I could not be more excited about. I have been working on this since 2020 when people were asking me to create a launch course, and I just couldn't figure out how to put together a course that seemed like it could stay updated and be relevant and helpful and useful. And plus, I like to talk to people. I like to hear their ideas, and I like to meet one-on-one. And so I'm introducing you to the Podcast Envy DIY Plus launch program. DIY Plus is not a course, and it's not a done-for-you service. It is a done with you opportunity where I share my launch framework, production management workflow, tips, resources, best practices, and even though you're still technically doing the launch yourself, you're not alone. As your guide, I'll meet you for 2 one-on-one coaching calls, and you'll have limited access to me for quick questions and recommendations throughout your 60-day program. Podcast Envy DIY Plus launch is really the best of all possible worlds and priced super economically at $950 for now. As the program grows, that rate will also grow. So don't wait. If you've been thinking about launching, if you know that 2023 is your year and you got stuck somewhere between idea and reality, this is what you need to move ahead. To find out if you're ready for Podcast Envy DIY Plus launch, click the link in the show notes to apply. The application can be found at thecreativeimposter.com/DIY app. That's DIYAPP. Again, linked in the show notes for your convenience. And opportunity number 2, if you are already podcasting and ready to level up your visibility this year, join social media strategist Lauren Ramsey and me for our February Podcast Envy virtual masterclass, Thursday, February 23rd, how to leverage video in your social media strategy for your podcast. This class is for you if you're frustrated by your podcast download numbers, you struggle to get new listeners, followers, sales, or engagement from your social media. You know you need video, but loathe the idea of recording yourself on camera. You love the idea of video, but feel like there just isn't enough time to add it to your content creation to-do list. Right now, you can get 50% off with the promo code VIPinvite, or click the link in the show notes to go straight to the promo pricing. If you're listening to this after February 23rd and you've missed the video masterclass, you know what? Visit us at thecreativeimposter.com/masterclasses for more upcoming opportunities to level up your podcasting strategy. All right, I'm here with my team of the Creative Imposter Studios, the whole team. This is the first time getting everyone all together in a Zoom room, and we are hanging out, and we just decided to celebrate. Well, by we, I mean I decided to celebrate 100 episodes of Podcast Envy by showing off this amazing team behind the scenes of the Creative Imposter Studios. And just to put someone on the spot, we're going to let our very newest team member, who literally hasn't even started yet, to introduce herself with what she does and a couple of pieces of advice.
All right, Andrea, thanks so much. I'm Monica Brain, and I will be editing and consulting producer for The Creative Imposter. And the number one tip I have for podcasters is to put your animals away. If you're recording at home, get your chickens, get them in a quiet spot, far away from where you're recording. Try to get those dogs to, give them some snacks or something like that.
Monica is obviously not where I am in Chicago because she said chickens. Continue.
Oh, right. Well, I definitely have had the experience of having live radio where a rooster crowed over and over again during the show. So that's my tip for podcasters. And one piece of advice that I would have for someone who wants to get into podcasting is to listen to your podcast with a notebook. Listen to your favorite podcast and write down what it is you love about them and why you keep listening to them. Take some notes on some of the things you don't like and really start learning from there.
My name is Heidi Stavert, and I am a podcast editor. And my number one tip for podcasters would be to try to get the best audio that you can from the start. Not only will your editor thank you, you'll be happier with the finished project that you end up with. And my one piece of advice for someone who would be interested in doing podcast editing would be to start your own podcast, because it gives you great experience, not only editing, but understanding how an entire show runs. And it makes you a better overall editor and a better overall podcast appreciator.
Edwin, did Heidi take your tip for podcasters?
Yes, but there's always more. There's always more. Hi, I'm Edwin Ruiz. I am the technical director, which means I am in charge of finding a lot of solutions for situations. My tip for podcasters is proximity. Understand what your proximity to your microphone does to your voice, because there's just so much to play with. And one piece of advice for someone who wants to do what I do, learn to be very sympathetic and be a nerd and always be looking for solutions for problems you don't have yet.
Look for solutions to problems you don't have yet. That sounds like a future thinking thing. I wonder if we should go to Helen next, since Helen's the one in the future.
Yeah, in the future where it's 95% humidity. I have envy to your coolness at the moment. My name is Helen King and I am one of the editors. I think one tip for podcasters would be in the preparation. I am a big fan of pre-interviewing guests. I think that it helps them feel comfortable with you. It helps you understand whether they are going to be a good speaker, how comfortable they are being interviewed. And then I think that it actually helps you create a better rapport when it comes to interviewing the person, which then will create a better listening experience for your listeners. And a piece of advice to someone who wants to do your job. I think listening to podcasts to understand how different podcasts sound and the different flow and structure. But I think the biggest one would be is to value yourself and value your skills and to always, just continually be learning and connecting with community who will be able to help you learn and problem solve the things that you don't know.
My name is Lisa Witter, and I write the show notes or blog posts for many of the shows here. And my advice to hosts of podcasts would be not to be afraid of the deeper questions. Don't be afraid of asking the questions that give your guest pause, such as what they would change about their professional or personal journey if they had to do it all over again. If they say nothing, fair enough, that's great. Another question then that I would ask would be, what do they think that should be done to make their professional space or their hobby space or wherever they are operating out of more equitable? Because if we don't start having those conversations in real time and in live settings, they're just not going to be had. Then in terms of piece of advice for someone wanting to write, go back to your journalism roots and take good notes, whatever that means to you in terms of highlighting a transcript. If you haven't been a journalist, go back to your college days when you took notes. If you were a terrible note taker in college, learn to listen with a good ear and start using all the different colors on your Google Docs when you start going through a transcript.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the podcast manager. My piece of advice for podcasters would be to embrace emotional moments, maybe not force it, but if it comes to happen, I think it may, even if it's not a topic that comes across easily, I think it may actually be the moment sometimes that bonds your listener. I know it does me. I know podcasts I've been listening to and I don't know why. And I know that is the moment, when I thought, okay, this kind of keeps me there because this is a real person. If it's joy, if it's tears, what have you, I think kind of those little moments make it really special. And I think via audio, they're a little bit more real even than with video. As for advice for the job, I'm really new to that. So I don't know. I think it helps if you're a stickler for details, maybe. And I know a lot for podcasts helps, I think, and try to be the listener. Maybe if you, listen to podcasts and then try to do some quality control or something like that. But in general, I think just try to be meticulous and love podcasts 50-50.
I'm Caitlin. I am the social media and outreach coordinator. One piece of advice for social media graphics would just be make sure that you're keeping it, on brand, easy to read and shareable. And if you don't like graphics or you're not that great at them, I suggest to hire out because they're definitely important to have, especially with your branding. And then a piece of advice for someone who wants to do my job is, if you don't have like the professional background already, there's plenty of resources online that you can use to gain the knowledge to do graphics and marketing and outreach and all those fun things.
And I'm Andrea Klunder, and I created this whole thing. I don't know what my title is. It changes on a day-to-day basis. But I do all the things in some way, shape, or form, except hopefully not write show notes anymore and hopefully not do any of the graphic design anymore. And my one tip for podcasters is to not try to be like anybody else. Figure out what your relationship is to your audience. Like, who are you? Well, first of all, who's your audience? Second of all, who are you to your audience? What's your relationship to them? And to lean into that and to lean into your personality and your character and not try to use a podcast voice or be like this show or copy this format, but to really be yourself in relationship with your listener. My piece of advice for somebody who wants to do my job of running a small podcast agency is to hire coaches who are good and who know what they're talking about, and then do what they tell you to do to continue to move forward and get better at doing all the things you don't know how to do. Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as Lemon Cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz, and hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Imposter Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.